Okay, let's talk about carbon emissions, specifically Scope 1, 2, and 3. You've probably heard these terms thrown around, and if you've ever felt a little bit lost trying to figure out what goes where, well, you are definitely not alone. It's a super common point of confusion for so many companies, but we're going to get it all sorted out right now. Right? This is the central question. What belongs where? Is the electricity you use to power your office Scope 1? What about that flight an employee takes for a conference? Is that Scope 3? It can feel like a total mess, but I promise there's a really simple logic to it all. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. The problem isn't that the terms are complicated. The real challenge, the whole secret really, is just understanding the boundary. You know, that invisible line that separates one scope from the other. Once you can see those lines clearly, everything else just clicks into place.
So, let's start with the easiest one, Scope 1. These are your direct emissions. The simplest way to think about it is this. It's the stuff that happens right there on your property, from equipment that your company directly owns or has control over.
Here's the official definition, and it's pretty clear. These are emissions coming straight from your own operations. The two words you really want to lock onto here are direct and owned or controlled. If your company is the one physically doing the thing that creates the emission, it's almost always going to be Scope 1. So, what does this actually look like in the real world? Well, we're talking about the fuel you burn in your own fleet of delivery trucks. Or say you have a diesel generator on site for backup power. That's Scope 1. The natural gas you burn in your boilers to heat the building? Yep, that's Scope 1 too. And if you remember just one thing about Scope 1, make it this. The simple logic is you burn it yourself. If your company's the one, so to speak, lighting the match, it's Scope 1. It's direct, it's immediate, and it's all yours. Okay, so moving on from what you've burned yourself, let's talk about the first layer of indirect emissions, Scope 2. This is all about the energy your company buys and uses.
Now here's the crucial difference. With Scope 2, the actual smokestack, the emission source, isn't at your facility. It's happening somewhere else, at a power plant miles away. But because you are the one who bought and used that energy, those emissions get chalked up to your company.
The absolute classic example here is the electricity you buy for your office or your factory. You flip a switch, the lights come on. But the emissions created to generate that electricity, that's Scope 2. And this goes for other kinds of purchased energy too, like steam, heat, or cooling. And here's the simple logic to lock this one in your brain. If Scope 1 is you burn it yourself, then Scope 2 is just as simple. You buy the energy. You didn't make it, but you paid for it and you used it. That's the boundary. All right, now for the big one, Scope 3. This is where things can get a little wild. It's where most of the confusion usually lives. But here's the kicker. For a lot of companies, this is where the vast majority of their emissions are hiding. This is the whole shebang, your entire value chain.
Scope 3 is, well, it's massive. It's designed to look both upstream, at all your suppliers, and downstream, at what happens with your products after they leave your hands. It's meant to capture every single other emission that your business is responsible for, even if it's happening halfway across the world.
And the scope of this is just huge. Think about it. The emissions it took to create the raw materials you buy, like cement or steel. The fuel some other company used to transport your goods. Your employee flying for a business trip. Even things like the energy your product consumes when a customer plugs it in at their house. That can all be Scope 3. So how do you remember this beast of a category? With another simple rule. Scope 3 is simply everything else in the value chain. It's the catch-all. If it's not you burning it, and it's not you buying the energy, it's probably Scope 3. And here we go, all laid out together. See how simple it is when you look at it this way? Scope 1, you burn it yourself. Scope 2, you buy the energy. And Scope 3, everything else. Seeing those clean boundaries and the simple logic really makes it all click, doesn't it?
So you might be thinking, okay, I get it, but why does it matter so much if I put something in the wrong bucket? Well, because getting these boundaries right isn't just some boring accounting exercise. It is the absolute foundation of any credible, effective climate strategy. Honestly, the stakes are pretty high. If you misclassify your emissions, you're looking at a flawed picture of your company's actual carbon footprint. That messes up your reporting, sure, but way more importantly, it could mean your entire reduction strategy is focused on the wrong things.
And that brings us to the last and maybe the most important question. Now that you understand these boundaries, take a second and think about your own company. Where does its biggest impact really lie?
I can tell you, for most companies, the real story, the biggest leverage point, is hidden deep inside Scope 3. And once you start digging, the answer might just surprise you.